Okay, I think we'll get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Catching Some Rays Solar on Brownfields webinar brought to you by the New Jersey Brownfields Assistance Center at the New Jersey Institute of Technology. My name is Sean Vroom, and I'm the director of the Assistance Center. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I think you'll find it extremely informative, especially if you are a novice when it comes to putting solar on brownfields, which most are. I'd like to welcome today's presenters. We have Brad Higginbottom. He's a project developer with Solar Landscape, a firm and New Jersey Brownfields Assistance Center affiliate member that specializes in solar development, including on brownfield sites, as well as former mayor of Pennsauken, New Jersey, and also part of the Solar Landscape team, Betsy McBride. The material that we're going to cover in this webinar will include what a brownfield is, the benefits of adding solar to redevelop brownfield sites, how to develop solar on brownfields and landfills, power grid basics, the New Jersey Community Solar Program, as well as other funding resources. And then Betsy and Brad are going to present a case study of successful solar that was put on a brownfields in Pennsauken, New Jersey. And then we will end with a Q&A session. So we're going to try and do our best to hold our presentation portion of the webinar to an hour, and that will leave us with about 30 minutes for Q&A. Yep, I'm having a little trouble with my slide here. Okay, sorry about that delay, a little bit of a trouble with the PowerPoint. So before we get started, I just wanted to go over some housekeeping items. Everyone is going to be muted during the presentation. I'd ask that you submit your questions via the Q&A pane that you'll find located at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and please address your questions to all so that all of the panelists will be able to see your questions. And all slides, as well as the webinar recording, so this is being recorded, will be made available on the New Jersey Brownfields Assistance Center website. So some of you may be asking yourself, what is the New Jersey Brownfields Assistance Center at NJIT? And the answer is that we are the first of its kind center dedicated to providing brownfield assistance solely to New Jersey's local and county governments, as well as nonprofits. And all of the assistance we provide is absolutely free of charge. And the reason that we're able to provide these free services is a grant from the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. So the mission of the New Jersey Brownfields Assistance Center is to educate and engage communities around brownfield issues, to provide free technical assistance and resources to county and municipal governments and nonprofits that are challenged by former industrial and commercial properties, as well as to develop tools, strategies, and resources, create partnerships, and provide subject matter experts to brownfields challenged communities. The New Jersey Brownfields Assistance Center team of professionals includes planners, engineers, environmental scientists, and social scientists who have helped hundreds of communities throughout the country. So here's how we can help you. And remember, again, that our assistance is absolutely free of charge. We have a resource center, which includes a website. Growing our website into a user-friendly and useful resource comprised of videos, tools, and other resources is a priority for the center. And of course, today's presentation will be uploaded to the site. And we encourage all of you to check the site often for new additions. We are also on Twitter and LinkedIn, so we do encourage that you follow us on those platforms. A key feature of our center is our Brownfields Help Desk. You can reach us by phone or by email. Here's where the personal brownfields assistance begins, and we tailor that assistance to your particular set of needs and circumstances. So for instance, you might have a quick question, which is when is EPA coming out with their next round of brownfields grants, or you want to know if we have an example of a successful EPA brownfield grant application. Call us or email us with those questions, and we will respond. There may be times when your assistant needs aren't as simple as a quick answer. You might not even know what type of assistance you need, only that you have a Brownfields challenge. That's okay. Call us. And through the course of that conversation that we'll have, we can get an understanding of the challenges that you're facing. And then we can either, give you assistance in that phone conversation, or we can develop an action plan or next steps on how we can help you. The key takeaway here is that we are here to help you, so please reach out to us. So to lay the foundation for today's presentation, I'd like to first cover what a brownfield is and why communities should consider developing solar on them. So the state definition of a brownfield, New Jersey state definition, is any former or current commercial or industrial site that is currently vacant or underutilized and on which there has been or there is suspected to have been a discharge of a contaminant. The federal definition of a brownfield is a property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of which may be complicated by the presence or potential presence of a hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant. So the definitions are very similar. However, the federal definition mentions the complications that perceived or existing contamination has on the site's expansion, redevelopment, or reuse. Another thing I'd like you to keep in mind is that although all contaminated sites are considered brownfields, not all brownfields are contaminated. It could be just the perception that they are. So why should you develop solar on brownfields? Well, first, it improves the local tax base by putting underutilized properties back on the tax rolls. It has the potential to create energy savings through sustainable design, as well as use for clean energy generation. It creates jobs. It turns blight into economic opportunity. It aligns with global warming trends by protecting greenfields from development and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And lastly, it can put otherwise difficult properties into productive use for energy generation. And Brad's going to discuss many of those benefits that I just mentioned as it relates to solar in more detail during his presentation. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Brad and let him discuss how developing solar on brownfields can be successfully achieved. So Brad, over to you.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you to the NJIT Brownfields Assistance Center for allowing us to do this webinar. A little more introductions. I am Brad Higginbottom. I'm old, so I have a lot of experience in my life. I was an Air Force captain back in the day, an F-111 pilot. I'm also a three-term Boundbrook councilman in the past, including council president. Also passed on the Boundbrook Planning Board, vice chairman. I was on the Greenbrook Flood Control Commission. I'm currently a New Jersey real estate broker, but mostly do my work with solar landscape and solar development. I'll even throw in I was an Eagle Scout. So in the background of this picture here are the first two completed New Jersey community solar projects on warehouses in Perth Amboy owned by Duke Realty. This site was originally American Smelting and Refining Company, a severely impacted brownfield site, and was remediated under Mayor Wilda Diaz. It's a major brownfield success story. Next slide. So I'll take a minute to go over some Solar 101 or Power Grid Basics. This is a very simple depiction of what happens with solar. Go to the next slide. So the sun hits solar panels. A solar cell consists of a layer of p-type or positive silicon placed next to a layer of n-type or negative silicon. In the n-type layer, there's an excess of electrons, and in the p-type layer, there's an excess of positively charged holes. So when you connect the n-type and p-type layers with a metallic wire, the electrons will travel through the n-type layer to the p-type layer by crossing the depletion zone, and then go through the external wire in the back of the n-type layer, creating a flow of direct current electricity. Panels can last about 40 years. There are, with a very limited loss of efficiency, less than 1%. There are currently solar panels still in production that were put in during the Carter administration. So then the inverter converts DC to AC power. An inverter is a switching device that creates AC power from DC power. Solar inverters on panels usually last between 10 and 12 years and typically need replacing at least once over a panel's lifetime. The power inverters are crucial for safe and efficient operation of solar panels. Solar creates DC power, but since Nikola Tesla won the war of the currents over Thomas Edison back in the day, we use AC power in our homes and businesses, hence the need for inverters. A transformer then steps up the voltage delivered to the grid. A transformer on a solar power facility is primarily used to step up the voltage to deliver the renewable energy. However, the transformer has some added benefits in that it provides galvanic isolation between the solar facility and the utility grid, which enhances safety. Then the solar meter allows for the display of real-time PV energy production data. This is the device used to measure the kilowatt production from a PV system. And then finally, AC power is delivered to the electrical grid. This electricity generated from the grid supply or utility scale project is not used directly at the host site. Just one other fun fact about silicon solar cells, the maximum theoretical efficiency level is about 32%. The best panels we use in commercial solar currently have efficiencies about 18 to 20%, but researchers are always studying how to improve efficiency and energy yield while keeping production costs low. Next slide. It's just a slightly more detailed depiction of what actually goes on in a landfill solar. You can have the added component of methane gas from the landfill being used to generate yet another source of power. Next slide. So we're going to talk a lot about today about New Jersey community solar along with brownfields. So the U.S. Department of Energy defines community solar as any solar project in which the benefits of a solar project flow to multiple customers, such as individuals, businesses, nonprofits, or even government agencies. In most cases, such as New Jersey, customers are benefiting from energy generated by solar panels from an off-site array. Community solar customers typically receive an electrical bill credit for electricity generated from their share of the community solar system, similar to someone who has rooftop panels installed on their home. Community solar can be a great option for people who are unable to install solar panels on their roofs because they don't own their homes or live in apartments or condos or have roof conditions that don't support a rooftop PV system due to shading, roof size, or roof condition, or even for financial reasons. The average residential homeowner with solar system installed in New Jersey has a household income of about $120,000. Currently, about a third of the states have enabling policies or legislation for community solar. So take a quick energy lesson here, a history lesson here. 2018, they passed legislation, the governor signed it. Then NJBPU announced that 75 megawatts DC would be allocated for the program's first year. 252 applications were submitted, and they were due September 9th, 2019. About 3.5 months later, they were awarded 45 projects totaling more than 77 megawatts DC. We go to year 2. They received 410 applications for 150 megawatts DC that are available. And as of now, we're waiting for them to announce the applications, and could be any day now. We anticipate that they will be awarded sometime this fall. After the third year, as we're going into the third year, and that's when anybody putting together applications here would be in the third year of the pilot program. They will go to a permanent community solar program. Next slide. So just to recap a little bit of the community solar opportunity so far, 225 megawatts will be awarded by year 2. This translates into over 35,000 New Jersey residents being powered by clean solar energy, or equivalent of 198,000 metric tons per year. A little quote from our governor. Governor Murphy's been kind of the driving force here behind this legislation, along with Senator Bob Smith and to some extent Assemblyman Kip Bateman. Next slide. A little bit more about how it works. The whole purpose of this is to bring environmental justice to communities and let people participate who aren't ordinarily able to participate in the solar experience. 51% of all the electricity must be sold to low or moderate income households. Get a large discount guaranteed every year, no matter whether your prices go up or down. The percentage is a guarantee. It's easy to enroll, no long-term contracts, no hidden fees. Most companies don't even do a credit check, and there's no barrier to exit. So at the end, municipalities and commercial real estate partnered with solar developers to use landfills, brownfields, and rooftops to transform the way we consume energy in New Jersey. Next slide. Just another quick depiction of what goes on here. We create the energy. It goes to the grid. It doesn't go to anybody local there. It goes into the grid for use. And then they give us credits, or developers credits, and then we sell those credits back to customers. Next slide. Some more benefits of community solar. So far, well, I'm going to go into scoring a little bit later, but so far in this program, no greenfields have been selected and no projects have been selected that didn't promise at least 51% low to moderate income. And next slide. So finally, there's strong opportunity for municipalities. The developer will build, own, and operate the project at their own expense, no cost to the municipality. You don't need to do a referendum, or you don't need to do a bond issue or anything like that. You as a municipality receive lease payments from the developer. And then typically the first subscribers would be in the community. So your residents get first crack at getting the discounts. Next slide. So Sean went over this a little bit here, but there's good reasons to put solar on landfill. First, it is the best use. You really can't put a building on a settling landfill, or one that's still in its early stages. There's a strong financial benefit. You can get lease payments from the solar developer. Developer pays all the expenses, including ongoing operations and management. And it can help in covering remediation costs. You want to work with the developer and county and state agencies to complete any remediation required and make the project environmentally secure, including the ongoing costs of landfill maintenance and operations. It is possible. Year one, there's a landfill project in Woodbine that is yet to be capped. So you can submit an uncapped landfill into community solar. It still made financial sense to do this project, even with the capping costs, et cetera. It demonstrates commitment to clean energy, your ERG. It's the right thing to do. It's very politically popular, and it's just it's really good for everybody. Finally, there's local job creation. This boosts the local economy, both while it's being built and then for ongoing maintenance. It pays prevailing wages, and there can be job training involved here. Next slide. All right, what to consider before you put solar on landfills. I'm going to get a little bit into the weeds here, so bear with me. Landfills constructed before the 1960s were often not much more than open pits in the ground used to dispose of all types of waste. These facilities were generally constructed without any engineering design or siting criteria and with few regulatory controls. Thus, volatile organic compounds, pesticides, PCBs, heavy metals, and other contaminants were at risk to migrate, potentially endangering public health and the environment. With the Solid Waste Disposal Act of 1976, the EPA established standards for hazardous waste management, including disposal disposal, as well as minimum standards for non-hazardous waste disposal facilities and practices. You can find all this on the EPA government site. Federal regulations might include location. There are restrictions for solar, including proximity to airports, floodplains, wetlands, unstable areas, fault areas, and even seismic impact zones. For the design, most landfills will have a composite liner comprised of a flexible membrane overlaying 2 feet of compacted soil, lining the bottom and sides of the landfill. A landfill liner serves to protect groundwater and the underlying soil from leachate releases. Your operating practices for active landfills, these include covering waste frequently with soil or other materials to control odor, blowing litter, fires, disease vectors such as insects and rodents, and scavenging. Also, owners and operators must implement a program for detecting and preventing the disposal of regulated hazardous waste. There have been solar projects on the closed portion of still active landfills. It is possible, and we'll give an example later with the Pennsauken landfill. And then groundwater monitoring and corrective action. These include installation and testing of groundwater wells to detect and assess groundwater contamination and establishment of necessary corrective measures for identified releases. Any solar project development activities on closed landfills must be planned to take into account these closure and post-closure activities and requirements. So all solar projects on landfills must be coordinated closely with state and local authorities, as they are responsible for ensuring that state and federal law requirements are met. Most landfills will already have an engineering company helping with the monitoring and maintenance, so this is usually the best place to start when thinking about a solar project. Landfill characteristics. The feasibility of siting solar PV systems on landfill depends on landfill characteristics, including the presence of pre-existing engineered systems, cap characteristics, landfill slope and stability, waste composition, settlement, erosion control, and vegetative cover, leachate and gas collection and treatment systems, and stormwater management. So the main question when you're looking at putting solar on landfill is it closed? Is the landfill already closed or yet to be closed? Landfills can be considered New Jersey community solar selection if they are not yet closed, but recognizing that the project will take longer to develop. Along with this, county and state may assist with capping a landfill, that is financial assistance and technical assistance. Cap characteristics. The guiding rule for solar on landfills is you can't penetrate the cap. So we use ballasted systems rather than drilling posts into the ground. Cap penetration and settlement limitations will likely guide the mounting systems and foundation selection and design. Age and thickness settlement. The age and thickness of a landfill can be an indicator of settlement potential. The rates of both uniform and differential settlement are largely a function of the composition of the waste material and the age of the landfill. The rate of settlement will usually diminish over time, but in general, landfills that have been capped in recent years will experience higher rates of settlement than landfills that were capped a decade or more ago. Landfills really are living and breathing things. Next slide. Landfills that have minimal grades are the best candidates for solar development as they simplify the design requirements of a PV system. The soil stability of sloping areas is another engineering consideration, and it is recommended to include a review of appropriate soils engineering studies and geotechnical data regarding the cap material during the feasibility assessment. Landfill leachate is the result of water filtering through the waste material that settles near the bottom of the landfill. The composition of landfill leachate is dependent on the type of waste contained in the landfill and may present risks to human health and the environment. Landfill gas collection and production systems are somewhat similar to leachate collection systems in that they typically consist of a network of pipes that are embedded through the waste material to collect and transport landfill gas generated by decaying waste. Stormwater management considerations are closely tied to erosion control and vegetative cover systems. Landfill covers are typically designed to absorb some stormwater runoff in the vegetative cover layer of the cap, while providing for additional runoff to infiltrate into an underlying soil layer where it can be conveyed to retention ponds or other discharge areas. Your solar design must take this into consideration. Long-term maintenance requirements. Many landfills have specific maintenance requirements to ensure the integrity of the landfill cap and other systems. These activities generally require access for people and equipment to the landfill area. Similarly, maintenance of vegetated covers may require mower access, so these activities may also reflect the layout of the photovoltaic system. A lot of recently built solar fields have been using sheep grazing and bee pollinators as part of their maintenance. Unfortunately, these don't work very well with capped landfills. And finally, interconnection. Solar arrays require three-phase power nearby, and the electric company circuits to have the capacity to take on the power generated by the solar array. If your landfill is a long way off the beaten path, you may need some infrastructure to get the electricity to the grid. These issues can be overcome by capital expenditures, but this may also drive up the cost of the project. Next slide. Kind of gone over the definition of brownfields. There are about 450,000 brownfields nationwide. Only 415 had renewable energy projects as of 2020. There are environmental benefits. Global annual solar installations grew more than sixfold this past decade, from 16 gigawatts in 2010 to 105 gigawatts in 2019. President Biden just last week recently announced plans for a tenfold increase in solar power, looking to generate up to 45% of U.S. electricity supply by 2050, up from less than 4% today. It is becoming increasingly difficult to find suitable sites for greenfield developments that don't involve environmental, aesthetic, or interconnection constraints. Solar development companies and investors are engaging solar farm construction on landfills, contaminated sites, and abandoned legacy industrial properties. Since almost every town and city in the U.S. has brownfield sites, these represent an untapped opportunity for sustainable energy development on undervalued property near population centers. The EPA has already pre-screened over 80,000 acres of brownfields for renewable energy development. Economic benefits. The EPA estimates a brownfield site, mitigated and developed, increases surrounding property values from between 5 to 15%. There's also potential lease payments from developers or potential ratables as brownfield sites are reclaimed. So brownfields are the best use, or can be, for undevelopable property. It is important to recognize that brownfield development also presents a unique opportunity for energy generation sites. Brownfield sites are usually located in close proximity to power lines and public roads, which can save the construction costs of building access roads or costs associated with construction of a long interconnect route. Redeveloping a brownfield or landfill with a community scale solar project improves the local tax base, creates energy savings, creates jobs, and turns blight into an economic opportunity. Finally, there's clean energy benefits. Solar does not pollute and is a carbonless renewable resource. Next slide. What to consider for solar on brownfields. First is the degree of remediation required. Mostly if time is the main factor in remediation, solar project can work while pollution is taken care of by time. What are your alternative uses of property? You want to use the highest and best, maximizing revenue or the public good. In my town of Boundbrook, we closed our landfill a long time ago, and solar really wasn't an option at the time, so we made it a public park with a ball field. We want to have an early discussion with both NJDEP and your civil engineers. DP has a pre-checklist, which if completed correctly, helps frame potential issues. Your municipal engineer and civil engineers can help with brownfields and what to do with them. You should explore funding for remediation. We'll go over that a little bit, but there's a lot of grants available, and counties and states will help. You also know that brownfields, many of them are small. A solar project needs to be at least 2 or more acres, hopefully bigger. Otherwise, you might consider buildings or small parks or other uses for your brownfield. And finally, time consideration. Understand what will be required to remediate and build and get a project going in both time and costs. Next slide. There are key roles you have in municipalities. Some things you must do. Zoning and permitting. A brownfield or landfill site may not be zoned appropriately to allow for solar as a primary or accessory use on a site. When identifying potential sites and areas for redevelopment, zoning changes may be required. So proactively allowing solar development on brownfield sites will reduce barriers such as time and costs that may come with requiring a special permit or additional appearances before a zoning board. This is something to consider whenever you review your master plan for your municipality. Municipalities can offer developers of projects streamlined permitting to lower the soft costs of development. Solar soft costs are the expenses to develop solar beyond the physical hardware and often make up a significant portion of the cost to install. There's a federal effort underway designed to improve local solar permitting, but municipalities can act now to help this process. I want to talk a little bit about redevelopment zones. If the site being considered for a community solar project is in a redevelopment zone, the project will be able to take advantage of redevelopment zone financing tools and incentives, as well as the provisions established for redevelopment zones in New Jersey contract law. One of the powers of a redevelopment agency, as put forth in New Jersey statutes, is the ability to lease or convey property or improvements without public bidding. While this may expedite a community solar project, the municipality may still decide to issue a request for proposal or RFP for solar development of the site to ensure that the most advantageous development offer is selected for the project. There are 7 criteria to declare a redevelopment zone, but you only need to hit 1. A vacant municipally owned land that cannot otherwise be commercially developed typically meets this criteria. Selecting developers. You want to choose wisely, look for good track records. Unfortunately, some projects never get built. They get snagged down due to, wrong estimates or other issues here. Project negotiations. While a project's moving forward, municipalities and community-based organizations can help broker agreements between community members and a project developer about what a site will look like and what community benefits will be provided. Also legal, working through redevelopment issues and working with developers can quickly run into issues. Make sure your legal team is on board with what you're trying to do and helps the process along. Make sure your team has solution finders, not problem finders. There's things you can do. Early and consistent engagement of community members around a brownfield site is critical to ensuring that community needs are heard and centered in the development process. Municipalities and community-based organizations can use their convening role to bring residents and stakeholders together to meet with project developers early and throughout the process. They can also gather feedback and initiate a project on a municipally owned or privately held site. A municipality can make initial investments in remediating a brownfield site's contamination so that it is suitable for solar development or other uses. Taking this step can lower the financial barriers that make projects in urban areas challenging to pencil out. And finally, workforce development. A municipality can include solar installation training for residents as a component to a project developed on municipal land to help support new entrants to the profession. We're going to need a lot of solar workers in the future. In New Jersey, all municipal jobs and any solar project over 1 megawatt in size must pay prevailing wage. Next slide, and I'll turn this over to Mayor McBride, talk about the Pennsauken landfill.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me, Sean. Thank you, Brad, for that comprehensive look at brownfield and landfill development of community solar. I'm specifically here to share with you the success story of the Pennsauken landfill and answer any questions that anybody might have. There were two phases to the development of solar on the Pennsauken landfill, and the first array was built in 2009. The hardware was put on actual sleds because you can't penetrate the cap. So the way they put them on the landfill were on sleds that could just rest on top of the cap. It is a Camden County initiative. It's part of the Pollution Control Financing Authority, and it was supported by Pennsauken. Our township committee, which I was a member, was definitely wanting to do something about the eyesore and problems that were associated with our landfill in Pennsauken. Smells, birds, varmints, groundwater contamination, things that we wanted to have remediated. We had to figure out a way to work with that. And so it was a very early initiative as compared to some of the things that we're looking at now. The private equity fund manager was Energy Power Partners. And the last array we put in was another 20,000 panels in 2017. I was mayor at the time. Those have precast concrete footings that are in almost like tubs, and each of the supports go into the concrete footing. All of this work is done by the partner, so it isn't something that the municipality had to do. We just wanted to make sure that there was good community benefit, that there were opportunities for residents, and that the landfill would get cleaned up. The Pollution Control Financing Authority shares the revenue with the private investor through the SREC and PPA program. So the power generated in this particular landfill is going to Aluminum Shapes. Aluminum Shapes is the business that is right next to the landfill, so there was very little interconnection problem. And Aluminum Shapes actually built the scaffolding for the Washington Monument and for the Capitol. So it's a very, at a time where they were struggling, this was a great opportunity for them to save money on their manufacturing costs of power. So I'm sorry to be, saying too many times, but it's a really good project. And I was happy to be part of the solution for our residents. Next slide. This is just a picture of the shovel or the ribbon cutting that we were doing for the 2017 additional 20,000. I think that the opportunities for solar in municipal landfills is a great environmental benefit. It's an opportunity to show our commitment to renewable energy, and it's wonderful to make sure that you have good partners as you do it. We were and can be thought of as continuing to be a challenged brownfield community. We had a lot of industrial past in Pennsauken along the river. I first got involved in government because residents in Pennsauken wanted to become a waterfront community and to be able to have access to the river. Well, in order to be able to do that, we needed to address the brownfields. And we needed to get good community partners in there, get good developers, and have a strong private, nonprofit, public partnership. We since have access to the river in 2 parks that were created because of the community benefits that were brought to us through the developers who worked with us on the brownfields. So as we know, not all of our brownfields are contaminated, but they are an eyesore, and they are needing additional opportunities for different types of use. And in order to get people to the river, we needed to have strong partners to help us on that in that area. I hope that you all will consider doing the same thing. Thank you. Next.
Next slide. So Brad back again here. Just to circle back to community solar. Year 2 had 410 applications chasing the 150 megawatts that'll be awarded. You want to be competitive and win in your application and work with the developer and your government officials to ensure success. Selection for New Jersey Community Solar is based on a 100-point rubric with some bonus points, and you need to study that carefully before you're submitting your application and work with your developer and community organizations to make sure you score. So they are well suited for success in community solar. There's 20 points for siting. Brownfields gets all 20, as do landfills and historic fill projects. But there's bonus siting points if it's a declared redevelopment area or happens to be in an economic opportunity zone. There's also community environmental justice engagement points for working both with the municipality, which you obviously would be, or affordable housing communities. There's job training preference. Solar Landscape takes this seriously. We have ongoing job training in several communities, including right now. We've also partnered with universities and schools to help learn about solar and et cetera. If you limit the geographical area to your municipality and adjacent municipality, that maxes out that portion of the points. And then finally, there's points for ensuring that your low to moderate income subscribers will be at least 51% of the project. So far, there have been no greenfields selected. There have been no projects selected that did not adhere to the LMI component of it. Next slide. Talk a little bit about funding for brownfield projects. New Jersey has stepped up its efforts to revive and reuse industrial brownfield sites with new loans and tax credits to encourage developers to clean up sites, especially in environmental justice areas where the sites have hurt public health and hindered economic growth. The state last year is providing a total of $15 million in low interest loans that will help developers with the cost of removing a legacy of industrial contaminants that may deter the reuse of sites. It is offering one-time tax credits to assist with the cost of assessment, investigation, and remediation of affected sites. These will be awarded to developers on completion of a remediation project. The new loan program also added demolition, asbestos abatement, and lead-based paint removal to the list of activities where state money could be used. Sites containing those or other contaminants are often a disincentive to developers who might be interested in returning a site to productive use, but balk at the expense of remediation, and so such places remain abandoned, threatening public health. Last year, the federal EPA also awarded 154 grants totaling $66.5 million in brownfields assessment and cleanup funding. Your civil engineering firm, as well as you may have someone on board in your municipality who helps with grants, but civil engineering firms that specialize in brownfields should be very knowledgeable about funding and will help you in every way to apply for anything available, both on a local, state, and federal level. Next slide. Just going over community solar benefits one more time. It does expand access to solar in the community, particularly for LMI residents. That's really the whole purpose of the program. Reduces energy costs for residents, businesses, and/or government operations. Remember that as a municipality, you can take up to 40% of the energy credits as a subscriber. Increases municipal income, producing clean energy locally, can create local jobs and provide local workforce development, creates a positive development on difficult sites such as brownfields and landfills, and finally enhancing community pride. You want to work on your ERG, and like I said, this is very politically popular when you're doing solar and other environmental renewables projects here. Next slide. Finally, just a summary. This is the perfect program for landfill, brownfield solar development. It's a 3-year pilot program. We're currently in the 3rd year. We think it's the best financial choice for vacant land. Community solar projects can be up to 5 megawatts with no minimum. And also a question we get asked a lot is customers in government energy aggregation programs can still participate in community solar. That concludes my presentation. We go to questions here. Next slide.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Brad and Betsy. Great presentations, lots of good information. So it looks like we're staying on schedule. We're actually a little bit early as far as finishing the presentations. So what we'd like to do now is open it up to Q&A. Again, if you have any questions, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you can input them into the Q&A pane, and again, address them to all so that we can all see the questions. So while everybody's maybe doing that, I had a quick question for Brad. I guess my first question would be if it's a municipality and they're considering, or they have brownfields and they're considering a brownfield or a landfill, and they're considering putting solar on it, what should be the very first step that they undertake? Because that's going to be a big question. Where do they even jump off for this?
Yeah, I mean, you really just need to look at what makes sense. Like I said, in Boundbrook, way back when, and this is a long time ago, it made sense for us to make a park and make a baseball field and everything, but it took a long time. We had to do methane venting, we had to do, let the landfill settle, all those other things. So you look at what the landfill looks like. If it's got steep slopes, it might be a little more difficult for solar, but still probably possible. But also, what's safe? Can it be a park? If it's an old landfill and well settled and everything looks good, and you can put a building on it. And that's you look at the brownfields that we talk about in Perth Amboy. Great example of creating a wonderful municipal rateable, as well as a lot of jobs locally within those warehouses. So, I mean, at the risk of creating work for myself and other solar developers, if you're considering solar, call a company up, have them come look at it, and give you their assessment here. We don't go chasing things that aren't viable or don't pencil out. So right away you get a quick answer of if that's a viable option.
Great.
So, I see
question.
some Q&A in there, but I'm having trouble reading them there.
Let's see. I'm having some trouble here. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the first question here is how many megawatts would be generated by 17 acres, approximately?
Depending on the panel size and the alignment and a lot of varies, but between 4 and 5.
4 and 5 megawatts for 17 acres approximately.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it depends. If you have to have an offset from adjacent properties, from wetlands, from streams, from there may be areas that aren't possible to develop there, but they're getting bigger and bigger panels. We use tracking devices on when we can. Doesn't work that too well in landfills because of settling. But it depends. Again, the real answer is contact a solar developer. They will kick out a design, do a helioscope, and you can have a discussion, go from there. And
Okay.
it's a lot of things like people are hesitant to reach out. You know, you're not creating any obligation by talking to a solar developer. They welcome your attention.
Okay. Next question is it possible to use the electricity generated locally during a regional power outage like during Sandy?
Typically, typically these are grid projects that go into the grid, so you really can't tap into them. If you have an ongoing need for electricity and it's adjacent site to municipal owned property, you know, you can have a both, you know, at the same place here, a grid project and a behind the meter project. But typically, yeah, solar will add electricity to the grid, but won't help when there's a major outage like Sandy or unfortunately like New Orleans where they lost, you know, they lost 8 of their main circuits coming into the city. So there's other ways to do locally, you know, locally available grids, mini grids that can help out in an emergency. They usually
Okay.
involve batteries as well. So it's
Okay. What is the latest date to apply for this 3-year program?
they haven't set to be determined. They haven't set it. Like everything else, the earlier you start, the better. There's a lot of things again to maximize your points. You need to go out and get, you know, get community involvement, figure out other ways that to kind of beat the system here. But it's the real answer is we don't know. They haven't set a date yet.
Okay. Um, let's see. Is ownership of a site an issue? Our coal gas site is owned by New Jersey NG. NJNG? Did you get that question, Brad?
Yeah. I mean, not really. You know, we do sites obviously on commercially owned property and municipality. But if we're doing, you know, if we're doing community solar, we always go back and get the assistance of the community. Um, yeah, coal sites are win-win because that means the coal got shut down. And we're replacing it with renewable energy. So that's what we're trying to do. But yeah, we can work on commercially owned and we work closely with the community because that we'll need their permission and their help to pull it off.
Okay, next question is any issues with aftermath from flooding on the equipment?
As far as I know, no solar projects in New Jersey were adversely affected. That included you know, rooftop with wind and everything. Um, but typically you may need to replace the inverters and some of the electrical equipment, but the panels generally come through with getting a good wash from a flood. Um, you need to go out and check them. That's something, you know, most companies do with their operations maintenance. We have drones that fly over and detect that all the panels are working properly. You know, we out and go physically inspect them, but actually you don't want to put them in a flood zone if you can help it. But we kind of got surprised this last time of where they went here, and typically they will survive the event.
Okay, great. I guess this question is for Betsy. Is the Pennsauken site owned by the city, and how come the benefits are going to a private company?
Thank you for the question. The site is owned by the Pollution Control Financing Authority. And that is, they've made the choice to give the power to aluminum shapes. And Pennsauken was supportive of that because we didn't want that large commercial partner to be struggling financially because they couldn't pay for their power to operate. So it was a decision to go forward with that as being the direct beneficiary.
Okay.
If I can just add to that,
Sure, go ahead.
it's rare that you have a large commercial off-taker right next to a landfill like this. And the other thing was when the Pennsauken landfill was done in 3 phases, when they first started, community solar wasn't really an option. So this was the best choice, and it's really worked out for everybody. So I mean, Camden County was kind of driving this process, certainly with Pensauken's help.
Okay, next question is there a rule of thumb cost per 1,000 feet to run lines from a site to three-phase power?
$1 million a mile.
Okay. You knew that one.
But like I say, we make projects pencil out here. You know, it's just obviously what's spent on capital or to get things going. Number one, it's going to benefit other people in the area to have the 3-phase power, but also it's just going to diminish the lease payments. So we can still make the project work. It's just going to change the financials.
Okay. Does it make sense to put a green belt around a solar site? Will it create pollen, dust? So I guess will it adversely affect the solar site if you do that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it depends. Solar, you know, the efficiency is diminished by dust and pollen, but we've seen ones with pollinator fields and everything else, and they do fine. So I think a lot of it depends on plant selection, and then proper maintenance of the site, which is up to the developer. So I think at the end of the day, yes, it does make sense. You want to have good visuals. You know, we've done everything from put up attractive fencing, which isn't the best option, planting some tall trees, but having a green field around is probably a good idea. You know, you're also concerned about the local wildlife and everything else. So I guess the answer to that is yes. It wouldn't adversely affect it.
Great. Out of the funding sources that you had mentioned earlier, Brad, would there be money? Is there any, I guess, can you flex that money to put green infrastructure such as rain gardens along with the solar panels? Is that something that's done or?
Yeah, I'm not sure. You know, I'm not sure everything how each grant can be used. Typically, if they're to remediate brownfields and everything, that could be part of it. What happens at the end? The other thing is when you're working with a developer, you know, it's kind of up to you you know, it's a kind of a contained pot of money. However, if you want to spend money on doing things like that, which would enhance the site and benefit everybody and take slightly lower lease payments, you know, that's always an option. But yeah, I'm not probably the right person to ask about grants. I don't know if Betsy's any better with that.
Betsy, you want to add anything to that?
Um, I wouldn't add about grants, but I would add that you can indicate your intention in the grant application to use available funding sources to put a rain garden around the site. It would enhance your grant application to say that the municipality intends to do something to make it look better for their residents. And then work with the developer to perhaps get them to provide that as part of their host community benefit. Many developers are working with nonprofits to benefit the community. And I know Solar Landscape has worked with nonprofits and churches in Pennsauken to get the word out to the residents and further assist those nonprofits with their fundraising efforts in a time of COVID challenges where people are not able to get the funds for themselves. Solar Landscape as a developer has helped them. And so it's always important to ask for money. You can ask in the grant application. You can ask your developer as well. If they don't know you want it, then you won't get it. So it's always important to do the asking. Thank you.
Thank you. So Brad, earlier you mentioned that 17 acres will produce roughly 4 to 5 megawatts, or 4 acres per megawatt. So NREL, I'm not sure what that acronym is for, uses 5.76 acres per megawatt. Is the difference due to the panel efficiencies?
Yes, and yeah, I make an estimate here based on, I'll defer to research. Although I will say, panels are getting both more efficient, and for ground mounts, they're getting larger, if you can tolerate them. But some of these larger panels actually are more productive, and that number will get smaller, acres per megawatt. But you can go with that number if you want. That's-
Okay. The grants that you had mentioned, it says who would apply for these grants if the site is owned by NJNG?
The developer can if there's a developer coming in to develop the site, they can be the one doing the grant. Um, I still think in some
The
cases, the municipality can
developer,
do the grant.
the civil engineer can do it. The municipality can do it. NJ, I think it's a EG, was it EG? They can do it. The more collaboration you show for the grant application, the better. So all those folks should be included in the application.
Okay, next question is, are there any special incentives to incorporate solar into brownfields redevelopment? For example, rooftop or carport solar that you're aware of?
Not per se. I mean, they just came out with a new SREX. Rooftops, carports, canopies, and floating solar. If you're into that, the SREX are $100 per megawatt. However, if it's municipally owned or public entity, schools, whatever, it's actually $120. But yeah, the SREC is the incentive. So that's basically it.
Okay, will the 3-year program be extended? Our remediation process will not be completed until the end of this year, so it may not be possible to apply until completion.
Yes, when the 3 years over, they're going to make a permanent program. It'll still probably be gated as to how many megawatts can go, but again, your remediated brownfields are still going to rise to the top of the list. So this is going to be an ongoing program. New Jersey is recognizing that even with commercial development and community solar, there's still a need for more solar. So my friend Senator Bob Smith also got 2 more bills passed, one for agrivoltaics that is building some things on farms, which previously has been rather difficult, and also for some utility scale grid supply. So New Jersey has a long way to go to get to our renewable goals, and we're going to get there. So, that it'll still be a program, there'll still be incentives, still looking forward to doing it. And we're in this for the long run. So hang in there, get the remediation done, and we'll go from there.
Okay, we had an earlier question that, that asked if it was possible to use the electricity generated for, regional power in a storm event. So I guess, Brad, if you can, I was wondering if you could go a little bit more into detail about microgrids, which is what that question was kind of alluding to. What they are, the benefits to the local community during power outages. Is that something that you're familiar with?
Somewhat. I mean, a lot of commercial developments are building, building a whole development with everything, including, like down in Holmdel where the old Bell Labs was. It's kind of there's businesses here, there's shops here, there's apartments here or condos. So it makes sense in a case like that to actually build some kind of renewable solar along with a battery, where if something, goes wrong, you can start it right back up here. I mean, for a long time, commercial businesses have had generators, typically, oil fired or whatever to start up. But you could build a microgrid in an area or developed community and just kind of plan for everything. We're going to make sure there's capacity on the circuits. We're going to make sure there's power stations required to handle the different methods of generating electricity. So yeah, these are all things that are interesting to talk about. There's a lot I've done with them, so I'm not sure I'm fully answering your question, but it's done with renewables, traditional sources of power, and batteries to make, and you can throw wind in there as well. So
So basically a microgrid is a self-contained smaller power grid that would service these critical infrastructure.
right, and can
Okay,
be disconnected from the main grid in case of an issue of a major disaster.
okay. Okay, great. Well, I believe that is our last question. So let me first thank Brad and Betsy again. Great presentation, lots of great information, lots to think about for communities. We did finish up a little bit early, but I do think we had some really good Q&A. I think a lot of good perspective was given on pursuing this. So what I did here is on this slide, you can see everybody's contact information. So, questions, typically have a habit of coming up after the fact. I know that's when usually some of my better questions do. So I have the contact information up for everybody. If you'd like to reach out, whether it's email or a phone call, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I guess so what we'll do is I'd like to thank everybody again for spending the time with us. I'd like again thank Brad and Betsy for their willingness to participate in this webinar. They did a great job. So with that, what I'll do is I'll close out the webinar today, and take care everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Sean, for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you.